Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So I hope everybody is well. I apologize for the poor lighting. It's almost 9:30 in the evening here in New York. I hope everybody's well. So I wanted to make a brief video, or at least I hope it's a brief video. I don't think this will take an hour and a half unlike the other one. But I wanted to give my thoughts on the casting of Javicia, I believe her name is Javicia Leslie, an African American actress who will now be playing the character of Ryan Wilder in Batwoman Season 2. For those who may not be aware, and I don't blame you if you weren't aware because the Batwoman TV show wasn't all that good, uh, last year I did a few videos about Batwoman, a few of the trailers, gave my opinion. I was not exactly impressed. I followed the show mainly through reviewers, in particular Jay Longbone, Heel versus Babyface, and Thorius. So this show, at least the first season, was a complete train wreck, right? And there were issues even behind the scenes, such as a stunt person getting injured, Ruby Rose herself getting injured. Why they let a woman that thin and wayfish do stunts, I have no idea. But at the end of the first season, Ruby Rose abruptly left the show, and at least to my knowledge, she hasn't really given any concrete reason why, only sending out a cryptic message, I think, soon after it happened, saying that those who know, right, those who are in the know why she left. I frankly don't care why she left, to be honest. It's not exactly as if this show helped her career, in my personal opinion. It didn't exactly show her off as a great actress. Now, I'm not going to judge her as an actress because I haven't seen enough of her acting. I don't really watch films and I watch less TV, right? So I don't think it's fair for me to say whether or not she's a good actress. But I will say that the little bit I have seen of her, in particular on this show, did not exactly impress me, right? This show didn't exactly help show off her range or anything. But then again, to be fair, one of the major issues this show has is that it has terrible characterization and terrible directing. No one looks like a good actor on this show, right? There are some who look better than others, like the girl, I should say the woman, to be fair. The woman who plays Alice, right, who's supposed to be like this female version of the Joker. Right, so she's manic and she's crazy and all this other stuff. She seems, at least on screen, to really relish in the role, and she plays it with the sort of over the top enthusiasm that I actually think works for the character. It's one of those things where it's like it's so bad you might as well just go over the top and be goofy with it. And I think that in her case it works. But again, overall, the show just has terrible direction, and I don't think there's any actor, right, whether they be very talented or very untalented, who could make this look good, right? You know, some people say you have to take chicken crap and turn it into chicken salad. I don't think even the best cook in the world or the best magician could pull off a miracle and turn this into something good, right? At least from what I saw of the first season, right? But let me get back to the point of the video, which is Javicia, I think is how you say her name. I've heard it said a couple different ways, but I'm going to go with Javicia. Now, Javicia being cast as Ryan Wilder, who will now be the second Batwoman. Right, so the most obvious thing is, of course, the fact that Ruby Rose and Kate Kane are white, and Javicia and the character of Ryan Wilder are black. Now, I generally don't like race lifts and race swaps, but I will admit that I'm so uninterested in this show that it doesn't really bother me. Plus, and to be fair, it's not like they're blackwashing Kate Kane. It would probably bug me a lot more if they were just saying, hey, this is Kate Kane, but we've totally, just made her an African American woman, which is something they've done in comics recently. Like, for example, they took Huntress, right? Helena Bertinelli Huntress, and just made her black for whatever reason. I'm like, the woman's Italian. Where did this come from? But getting back to the point, they created a new black character to basically, wear the mantle. And passing on the name, passing on the mantle is nothing new in comics, right? In the Bat family, itself. You've had people such as Robin and Terry McGinnis be Batman. There have been several Robins, right? There's been a good, what, five, I think, right? Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Damian Wayne. I think there's one more. I'm probably missing somebody, right? But there's always been, a new Robin every so often. There's been at least, what, three Batgirls, right? There's been, of course, Barbara Gordon, Stephanie Brown, I think she was Batgirl. Cassie Kane, who's my personal favorite, mainly because she's just DC's answer to Marvel's X-23. But that's another story but a different story for another day. All right, so passing the mantle on is nothing new in comics. So I'm not really bothered by this, right? But I do think that there are some interesting things that I do notice as regards to the race. Now, Tristan of Nerdette's Newsstand, on her video, she posed a very interesting question in the comments. Now, if you've seen her video and you've seen the comments section, you already know what I'm going to say. But if you haven't, the question that she posed in her video was, is this a race swap? Is this a race swap because it's a separate person, a separate character? And in my personal opinion, it is, and I'll tell you why. Because it's still a non-white person taking on the mantle of a traditionally white hero. Right? And again, we see this all the time in comics, right? You see it in Marvel, for example, with uh, Miles Morales, right, being one of many Spider-Men, right? But he gets, in particular, he gets praise and notice for the fact that he's the first black Spider-Man, although technically he's biracial, and he wouldn't be the first biracial Spider-Man. Miguel O'Hara, everybody keeps forgetting about him. Spider-Man 2099. But anyhow, again, right, I consider that a race swap, right? When a black hero takes on what is traditionally seen as a white person's mantle, right? You have Falcon, for example, in Marvel becoming Captain America. In DC and in the Bat family, naturally, right? There's Cassie Kane, who's Asian, although technically she is biracial because she's the daughter of Lady Shiva, and Richard Kane, and Richard Kane is white, but I swear they never acknowledge him. They act like Lady Shiva just did like asexual reproduction or something, which didn't happen. But anyway, after all, I mean, Cassie gets the last name of Kane from it's either what, Richard Kane or David Kane, one of them. One of those names is his names. But Kane is definitely from the father, and the father's a white man. That much I remember. Right? So there's that. And of course many others. For example, there's there's basically a black girl who kind of looks like Moon Girl from Marvel, and she's Power Girl, or at least another person wearing the mantle of Power Girl, which is funny because Power Girl is the alternate universe version of Supergirl, and now she has a black race swap of herself. So it's funny, but again, I mean, you have Nubia, for example, who's the Black Wonder Woman. Right, plenty of examples in DC and Marvel's history of passing the mantle around and creating gender swaps and creating race swaps. So again, nothing new, which is probably why I'm not really bothered by this. But I am intrigued by it, which is why I'm commenting on it. So there's that, right? So I do think that it is a race swap, given that it's traditionally a white hero, right? So there's that. There's the first thing. The second thing that I notice that has a racial element or connection is the fact that they are again race lifting a character who is known for having red hair. Now, to be fair, the character of Kate Kane herself is not a redhead, but Batwoman, right? The persona, right? The superhero look, that has long flowing red hair, and the red bat symbol on the chest and all that. And that's a very striking visual look. It tells you immediately, okay, that's Batwoman, right? And now they've again put a African American in the role of what is traditionally a white redhead. For example, Disney did this when they casted for the live action version of The Little Mermaid, right? Casting a African American uh, girl to play Ariel, whereas Ariel is traditionally, a redheaded princess. Another thing that they've done that I've noticed is that, and this is again calling back to the visuals, and this is going to be more comics based, but if you've ever seen the way Batwoman, not really Kate Kane, but the way Batwoman is depicted in the comics, right? It's typically this very striking contrast between the colors red, black, and white, right? The black and the red, of course, are in the costume itself, and then you have the white, right? The stark, almost white as a sheet of paper white, or white as one's teeth type of white, represented in Kate Kane herself, right? Often being drawn with this very ashen skin when she's in the persona, at least in the comics, in the persona of Batwoman. And to my knowledge, the colors are actually supposed to be a callback to um, her history as a Jew or as an Israeli or related to Israel in some fashion, right? So there is a significance to this. And when you change the skin tone, right, of your lead character, naturally the contrasting colors are going to be different, and therefore that visual significance is now going to change. Another thing that I've noticed about this is that they are again race swapping a character who, when the character is white, is particularly very pale. If you remember, for example, The Little Mermaid, right? If you've seen the original one, which I'm assuming we all have, right? Ariel is drawn as very pale, long red hair, right? And now she's going to be played by a very light-skinned black girl, but still her skin, right? Even as a light-skinned black woman, is still going to be darker than Ariel's original tone, which was very, very, very light, very pale. And then, of course, if you're familiar with the Deadpool films, you probably know or remember that the character of Domino was race swapped for the film. And they made her very light skinned, but still very Afrocentric, right? The big hair. They tried to, do the mark around the eye by just making the eye white while still leaving the skin tone maybe a few shades lighter than I am on this video. But the thing is that when you do that, you lose the visual contrast, right? Domino's not white as a sheet of paper for no reason at all. Her skin tone, right? Her ashen white skin, contrasted against what's usually a black mark around her eye, right? Calls back to her name. She looks like a domino, right? It's this very visual contrast between black and white. It's very stark. It's very obvious. You can't miss it. And when you're dealing with a visual medium like a comic book, right, the visuals are important, and the symbolism behind the visuals, the visual narrative behind those visuals is very important, because that's another element of storytelling. Now I understand that doesn't always translate well or translate easily to a live action adaptation, be a film or a TV show. But still, there's a difference between having trouble adapting it to a different medium and then just disregarding it altogether. And I think that when they do these things, when they cast a black woman and they give her the role of a white woman who, visually speaking, has long red hair and has very pale skin, at least when she's in costume, it's not a matter of, oh, we're having trouble adapting this for a TV show because of the lighting and everything. It's no, we're totally just going to throw any visual uh, uh, significance out of the window to show that we are progressive. And on that regard, when they do those type of things, I find that highly irritating because, as I've said before, and I will say again, uh, we as black, brown people, however you want to identify it, we don't need, be it in media or be it in real life, we don't need the scraps from the white man's table. And when they do these type of things, that's how it comes across to me, right? You can't make a name of your own. You can't be a hero in your own right. So let's just give you poor brown person, the name of a white person who is more popular than you are, right? We don't need scraps from the table. We need to make our own damn table, make our own damn stuff. But we keep accepting these scraps from the table, and you wonder why you don't see more black superheroes made by black creators and black artists. Well, here's a big reason why. Because the black artists that are already in there just keep taking what the white producers oftentimes, right, are willing to, give them. And you want to lash out at, white creators for not making black characters, or for making black characters, or for playing black characters, right? Like the whole voice acting thing. You want to accuse people of digital blackface. But number one, you won't make your own characters, you won't make your own original heroes. And two, you now want to claim what was made by white men just because they made characters in your image. And three, right, this only ever goes one way. And this is what frustrates me about it. This only ever goes one way, right? You will see a black hero take a white hero's name, take their mantle, take everything. You will never see it in the reverse. Let me make a guarantee to you. You will never see a white person as Storm of the X-Men. I think that title will always belong to Ororo Munroe, right? But I think if for some reason they tried to pass the name on to someone else, it would be someone who was black. So probably someone who's related to her, right? A nephew, a surrogate son, a surrogate daughter, right? A kid with the child that she somehow doesn't know about. Right? But they would sooner pass her name on to any other brown person than they ever would a white person. For example, you're never gonna see Kitty Pryde as Storm, right? They could give her weather-related powers all they wanted to, right? You could try to justify it by saying that Kitty and Storm had a mother-daughter type relationship when Kitty was young, which is true, right? The 80s comics, the Claremont era comics. But you will never see Kitty Pryde as Storm. You're never going to see a white person, at least in the modern day, a white person with the mantle of Storm. Hell, if a white person would even cosplay as Storm, people would just dogpile them online. And I would say that for any hero. For example, there have been times in the comics on Marvel's side where James Rhodes, right, War Machine, has worn the Iron Man suit, right? So not just wearing a Iron Man derivative in the War Machine armor, but literally wearing and going by the name of Iron Man. I think in particular he did this during the Demon in a Bottle storyline, but I know it's happened a few times since then. Right, but there's been plenty of times, if you're familiar with the Iron Man comics, where Rhodey has been Iron Man, has worn the Iron Man armor, has had the mantle of Iron Man. You're not going to see Tony Stark take over as War Machine for any reason. It's never going to happen. The closest you'll ever get to that is if he somehow remote controls the War Machine armor in some fashion. But you're not going to see Tony in the War Machine armor. They're not going to let a white hero take on a black man's mantle and a black man's name and a black man's suit. They'll let black people do it to whites all day long and then some. But they will never allow it to go in the opposite direction. And that unbalance, right? That one-way type of mentality frustrates me as someone who doesn't really care in most instances about what the ethnicity and gender or race or anything else of the hero is. I just want a hero, but they make it something that you have to be constantly cognizant about and constantly aware of. So these are the things that I notice. So there's my little lecture rant on just the racial aspect of this. Again, I have no problem with her being black. If they want to cast a black woman, go right ahead. It's not gonna doom the show or save the show any more than it already was. But again, these are the things I noticed. So there's that. Then you have the statement. This is from Deadline that I'm looking at that you sadly can't see, but I'll leave it in the description in the video. So apparently, Javicia was previously on the show God Friended Me. I'm not familiar with it, so I don't care. But here's what she has to say, right? Here's her statement. I am extremely proud to be the first black actress to play the iconic role of Batwoman on television. First of all, Batwoman is not iconic. She's hardly even well known outside of the comic books, and even in the comic books, she's not all that well known. The iconic female Bat character you're thinking of, my dear, is Batgirl. And there hasn't been a black Batgirl yet, to my knowledge, but we do have an Asian one in Cassie Kane, right? But there has been a black Catwoman, so that would have been interesting if they had cast her as that. But obviously, this show it's not about Catwoman. But anyway, her statement continues. And as a bisexual woman, I am honored to join this groundbreaking show, which has been such a trailblazer for the LGBTQ plus community. Well, the fact that she has to immediately identify her sexual orientation tells me a few things. Number one, she's perfect for DC because DC has this habit of what I call fan service lesbians. And what I mean is that they tend to take their very popular female characters, in particular their female villainesses, and they tend to make them bi so that they can give them these lesbian moments, but still put them with their canonical male love interest. For example, they did it with Wonder Woman, although she's technically a heroine. But Craig Rucker did that back in 2016. I even did a video about that, exploring the implications of that and of the reasoning he gave for that, which was basically, well, she grew up on a lesbian island, so she has to be bisexual. Think this out, man. Think this out. But anyway, so there's her. There's of course Catwoman. There's Harley Quinn. There's Poison Ivy, and no doubt. There we go. A few more, but these tend to be the ones that are the most prominent, right? And they're all bisexual. So Kate Kane in the comics, if I remember correctly, is one of the few strictly lesbian women in DC's comics, right? She's not bi, she's not sexually attracted to men, she's a lesbian, right? She likes girls. So with this new character of Ryan Wilder, I wonder if they're going to stick with that, if they're going to make the character lesbian, or if they're going to do the whole thing that DC does, right? Fan service lesbians, and make her bi so that they can give her male love interest and female love interest. So there's that. The second thing is that if she has to lead with her sexual orientation and note that it's not, hetero, right? So it's not standard, right? Or the overwhelming norm, I guess you could say, right? If you have to mention it, it's an outlier, right? So it tells me that they're still marketing and choosing their actors and actresses at least partially on agenda. And in my opinion, when you start doing that, you're already coming from this very weak premise, in my opinion, because here's the thing about being, at least in my opinion, as a person on the outside looking in, being LGBTQ is not really all that edgy anymore on TV, right? This isn't the 1990s when, Ellen outed herself on her own television show, right? And all that stuff. It's no longer groundbreaking. They keep trying to act like it's groundbreaking, but it's not groundbreaking anymore, right? Just like being a biracial person isn't groundbreaking anymore. 20, 30, 40 years ago, yes, it was so rare that you kind of stood out. But now no one cares. No one really cares, right? But anyway, another thing that kind of, I guess, grabs my attention is that she says that this groundbreaking show, if you want to call it being an abject failure, your first season, groundbreaking, okay. But she says that it's such a trailblazer for the LGBTQ plus community. I'm starting to get a bit tired of the term trailblazer, and not just because it's the code name for one of the new warriors, which I think never came out. Or if it did, I missed it. That's probably a good thing. But anyway, when I think of a trailblazer, I think of two types, right? I think of the positive type and a negative type. The positive type, right, is the type that, literally, makes a trail, right? Creates this road that previously wasn't there or wasn't often tread, right? And they, take the risk and all that to make sure that now, people who come after them, right, have a path that they can follow. Whether you think about a trailblazer in a societal sense, or you think about a literal, person who like, makes and travels trails, right? That's sort of the point, right? To sort of, take this unknown, unexplored thing, make a trail out of it, make a path, and then people who come after you will have an easier time traveling it than you yourself did, right? It's making a path, or at least an easier path for the future. So that's a positive trailblazer. Then you have the negative trailblazer, right? The one who literally blazes the trail, the one who literally raises the community, who burns it to the ground and, like, just ruins everything and leaves nothing but ash. And sadly, that's how I see Batwoman, in my personal opinion. Because at least from the reviews I saw, I don't see where it in any legitimate way helped the LGBTQ plus community. How? It didn't elevate Ruby Rose as an actress. I would say, if anything, it hurt her. It certainly did not um, display her acting range. The character of Kate Kane herself, right, is not a well-written character, and she's not a good person, right? They try to make her come across as this, like, flawed um, anti-hero, but they don't understand how to write flawed heroes or anti-heroes or anything else. So she comes across as someone who's just very unlikable, right? She kills people. She allows her sister Alice to kill more people. She lets a girl go. She doesn't bring her in just because the girl. And keep in mind, this girl, like, tried to kill, like, hundreds of people, like, on a train or something. She's a terrorist. And she lets her go because the girl's a confused lesbian. This is not a hero. This is not even an anti-hero. This is awful. So it's not as if the character of Kate Kane, was some sort of beacon to look to for LGBTQ plus representation, at least in my opinion. Right? And they have people on the show like, what's her name? Rachel Maddow. Okay, Rachel Maddow plays a talking head every once in a while. Again, how does her presence elevate the show in any fashion at all? I just don't see where it blazed a positive trail. I think it blazed a negative one in that it didn't exactly help the LGBTQ plus community. It didn't help the lesbian community when it came to representation. But that's just me, right? So there's that. So the Deadline article says here that Batwoman premiered last fall as the first superhero series in television history to feature an avowed LGBTQ character as a central character. Yes, who outed herself and even said that Batwoman is lesbian. No, Batwoman's not lesbian because Batwoman's the superhero persona. The superhero persona doesn't have a sexuality. It's like saying that your work uniform has a sexuality. It doesn't. But anyway, right. It says here that following Ruby Rose's departure, the producers vowed to cast another LGBTQ actor for the role. So again, it reads to me that they were prioritizing sexual orientation over actual acting ability. And when you do that, well, in my opinion, you set yourself up for failure. But it says here that Leslie, right, Javicia Leslie will play a new character in the title role named Ryan Wilder, right? So apparently Ryan Wilder is likable, messy, goofy, untamed, right? It says here that with no one to keep her on track, Ryan spent years as a drug runner, dodging the GCPD and masking her pain with bad habits. And now today she lives in her van with her plant. She would steal milk for an alley cat and would kill a person with their bare hands, and she's the most dangerous type of fighter. Now, let me just read this part word for word, right? Ryan is the most dangerous type of fighter. Remember that word, fighter. Highly skilled and wildly undisciplined. An out lesbian. Athletic. Raw. Passionate. Fallible. Which of these terms is not like the other? A fighter can be highly skilled and wildly undisciplined, right? That's something you have to be concerned about if you are a combat sport athlete. Athletic, raw, passionate, fallible, those are all things that could either win you a fight or cost you a fight if you are in combat sports. You know what doesn't matter when you're in combat sports? Being an out lesbian. Yes, I do know that there are plenty of lesbians in like MMA and women's basketball and all that, but here's the thing. Their sexuality has nothing to do with their talent. Their sexuality has nothing to do with their sport. What does it matter if they're lesbian or not? What does it matter? How does this contribute or take away in any way to her being, again, the most dangerous type of fighter? Being a lesbian doesn't mean that you throw harder punches or lighter punches. It doesn't mean that you throw harder kicks or lighter kicks. It's got nothing to do at all with being in combat and everything to do with letting you know that, hey, she's gay. She's gay. Did you know she's gay? She's gay. I don't care. I don't care. Says here, and very much not your stereotypical all-American hero. Here's the thing. I actually like, with the exception of the what I think is the unnecessary hyper focus on sexuality, right? I'm not saying you can't focus on it or that you can't bring it up, right? If you're going to tell a love story, right, or anything like that, naturally sexuality is going to come up. But again, it's the hyper focus in instances where it doesn't matter that gets me, not the fact that she's lesbian in general. I don't care, right? But I think that outside of that hyper focus on her orientation, I actually like her backstory thus far, right? Former drug runner, right? Had bad habits, dodging the GCPD, right? Now she's just living in her van, right? This duality, right? So she would steal milk for an alley cat. She the next Catwoman? I don't know. But could also kill with her bare hands. I like the duality in characters like that. It's actually one of the reasons why I like Huntress. You know, she likes children and she's a mentor and a teacher and all that. She'll also kill you, right? I like characters that have this duality about them. So I think that the character of Ryan Wilder is an interesting concept. And if this show were better, I'd probably at least give it a chance. But when you have so many issues with season one, right? The stunts, the lighting, the costuming, the atrocious acting, and none of that is addressed here in this Deadline article. They're not talking about improving those things, right? And then when you have this, in my opinion, unnecessary focus on things that don't really matter in the general scheme of the story, well, I sadly think that this interesting character is just going to end up a lot like Kate Kane, just very unlikable and just poorly acted. And that's the biggest thing. Out of all the issues this show had, And believe me, it's got plenty. The biggest issue has always been, three biggest issues I should say, have always been the agenda pushing, the lack of direction, the terrible direction, right? The poor characterization and the poor storytelling. Okay, so I've really told five. I kind of miscounted. But those are the biggest issues this show ever had. And if you don't address those issues, those five issues, especially the ones about characterization and direction and storytelling, then guess what? You could put any woman in this show as the lead. You could put Susan Sarandon, you could put Linda Hamilton, you could put Halle Berry, you could put Gina Torres, you could put Ming-Na Wen, Michelle Yeoh, Lucy Liu, it doesn't matter. You could put any woman who's a well-known action actress in this role. And if you do not address the direction, the storytelling, and the characterization, you are still going to have a bad show and a bad, unlikable lead. Now, of course, if you were to hire a well-known actress, she might be able to do the job a little bit better because she's talented and knows what she's doing. But let's be honest, all the women that I listed, right, are not available for this, and they would not do this show. Here's the thing: a lot of the women that I listed, have worked on TV, right? Michelle Yeoh was on Star Trek Discovery. Ming-Na Wen was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for several years. Lucy Liu did a very interesting dramatic turn on Elementary for several years. So a lot of them still do work on the small screen. But I don't think any of them would sign up for this. Let's just put it like this. You could bring Linda Hamilton into this show. And if you don't change the fundamental issues, even she couldn't save this. This show, in my opinion, second season or not, is terminated. Kind of like Dark Fate. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.